Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show, where we celebrate the power of words and the beauty of storytelling. Join us on this journey as we delve into the minds of successful authors and small business owners who have mastered the art of crafting captivating narratives that inspire, educate, and entertain. Prepare to be inspired as we explore the boundless possibilities that come from sharing stories and experiences that shape our lives and ignite our passions. Through heartfelt conversations and insightful discussions, we uncover the wisdom and creativity that fuel these incredible individuals in their pursuit of greatness. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let the magic of storytelling transport you to new worlds and perspectives. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and uplifted as we embark on this storytelling journey together. Stay tuned for an episode filled with wisdom, inspiration, and the power of words. Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Say where stories come alive. Let's begin this adventure together. Don't miss out on the opportunity to connect with some of the most talented and compelling voices in literature today. Tune in and let the journey begin.
Hey, welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Happy Tuesday, everyone. If you hear the excitement in my voice, it's caused this. It rained last night in Tempe, Arizona. I'm very excited. That's a big thing for us out here in Arizona, especially in Tempe. It rained pretty good, so we're excited. It's a little cooler, and I'm supposed to get some more rain the rest of the week, about starting Thursday, so that's exciting. Okay, so waiting for our special guest. What a powerful story this lady has to offer us. So hopefully she calls in, she gets it in there. You know, she lived in Russia for like 20 years. She went. I don't want to give away too much stuff, but she's the author of 2 outstanding memoirs. You can talk, she'll talk a little bit about that. But her story is unbelievable. She went through a lot of stuff, a lot of turmoil in her life, but she wound up going to school, going to medical school. And you know how hard that is, to go to medical school. There's our special guest. All right. Let me go back and start. Hi, ma'am. How you doing?
Can you hear me okay? I had a terrible time getting in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. Our special guest is here, guys, so that's very good. Very excited. But our special guest, she was born into a family of OSS, CIA, NSA operatives, and sold to the MK Ultra program. You can explain that to me in a second when you start talking, but it's okay.
Sure.
By her father at age 6 at 1955. She survived a childhood of mind control, ritual abuse, and faced a future in prostitution for the CIA. Let's welcome to her show. Our special guest is so happy to have her here, Dr. Juliet Ingalls. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, Hollis. Glad to see you.
Glad to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. You're awesome. Again, I'm reading your bio, I'm reading your story. Very powerful. So go ahead and tell us more about your story a little bit. And what is MK Ultra? What is that program? So go ahead, tell your story and MK Ultra. Go ahead.
MK Ultra is a mind control program that was started by the CIA in 1953. It was started by a group of CIA operatives, which included 5 of my uncles, and they had been in Nuremberg during the trials after the Second World War, and they were evaluating the work of the Nazi scientists in the concentration camps, where they did just absolutely horrific, inhuman experimentation that they believed would never be allowed again, and I hope it isn't. And they wanted it. So this group of Americans and Nazi scientists started working together while they were still in Nuremberg. And instead of destroying all the research on the horrific mind controls, use of drugs, control of population, methods of torture, they kept it. And instead they brought the scientists, and in the case of MK Ultra, they brought about 1,500 of them to Huntsville, Alabama. This would be in 1947 to 49, and relocated them inside the United States, gave them new identities, brought their families over. And then to start the program in 1953, they hired Sidney Gottlieb, who was a fervent Zionist and was known as the chief poisoner of the CIA. His specialty was bioweapons, which included LSD and drugs. They put him in charge in 1953, and I was 6 years old in 1955, and since my family was very heavily involved in this, they put me in the program. And the program pretty much started with the children of the organizers of MK Ultra, but it's grown huge ever since, and it's out of control. So finally, all these years later, Congress is starting to hold hearings on what this top secret program, which was qualified as 18 levels above the president's need to know. Yeah, how many people were actually involved, which I can tell you from my personal experience, is thousands of Americans have been put through torture, drug abuse, drug addiction, and then what they mastered was the ability to make you forget everything. So people have big gaps in their lives and don't know why, but it's an enormous problem. And the first congressional hearing was 2 weeks ago. And my objection was that they claimed the survivors were all too frightened to speak. And in actual fact, dozens of us have come forward and are ready to speak. And I'm 77, so I figure, well, I went in at the beginning. I hope this is the end. I doubt it. But so we're getting ready to speak in Congress. And I wrote a book about my childhood in MK Ultra, which is how I really got into remembering, because once I'd escaped and lived my own life, of course, it affected my entire life, but I couldn't remember childhood at all from before the age of high school on. But my book, Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic, is about that time and is, I believe, a very accurate description, because I don't look at it from an adult point of view. I'm not explaining what these things are because I didn't know. And I was in a program called Sex Magic. Of course, I didn't know what that was. I was a child. Yeah. So but certainly the effects on me were to a child, anything sexual is abuse, is violence, so now we're in a situation where we have the UN actively promoting laws which would make pedophilia legal, and in fact would make it illegal to prosecute a pedophile. We're facing that. We have that being considered in every one of our state legislatures. It's being put forward by the UN Organization of Jurists, and things are not right in the world, and I think MK Ultra having mind controlled tens of thousands of children who now are in positions of power inside the U.S. has a lot to do with it. We need to know what happened and how it's affecting us now.
Dr. Engel, thank you for sharing that. Very emotional, very passionate. It's one thing. Did you get the backlash from that because you want to come forward, you want to talk up? They don't want people to know about this. Have you had problems trying to get ready to speak up?
Oh, yes.
Have you had problems getting ready? Yeah. So, bless your heart for being so strong and still being, hey, I'm still going to talk about it. I'm still going to go forward with it. So bless your heart. That's wonderful. You wrote the books, and I'm sure you probably got a lot of little notes on the door about those books. I didn't really realize that this stuff is still going on, and start talking about it. So thank you for sharing that with us. And the information about pedophiles and being legal, that's a whole other chapter of stuff in our world. But again, thank you. Okay, so you go through this. First thing is you went through this and you start doing some things, and your father introduced you to this story. As you got older, you must have been so confused. Daddy, why'd you do this to me? What is this? But maybe because he was so deep into it, he didn't think anything of it. Explain a little bit about how you started to feel about your father after you escaped at 17. Explain a little bit.
Those are really good questions, and I think about them all the time. Yeah, I was 6 years old when my father took me to the park, like we were just going to go to the park, introduced me to one of his old army buddies who gave me a drugged up Coca-Cola. And I woke up being molested from behind, and my father was standing there taking money for it. And when I screamed for help, he looked at me and said, "Shut up. This is what I raised you for." And and that separation, that wall that came down, just separated us like by an ocean. And I'd already, my mother was another case. I think she'd been mind controlled, and her brother, who later became one of the founders of the National Security Agency, he was also clearly mind controlled in the early years. And we have to look at the early years because it's just gotten bigger, more complicated. Now it's all tied in with AI and electronics. And unless we know where it came from and the root of this evil that's being foisted on us now, it'll be impossible to fight. So that's why I'm coming forward. I'm 77 years old, and I want everyone to know what I know. And yeah, it impacted my entire life. I still went ahead and escaped, graduated from medical school, had a practice for many years. Then I went to Russia. I was invited to Russia. I helped reform their maternal and infant healthcare system, and I started an underground railroad, which rescued, by the time I was done, we could document 70,000 people we rescued and brought them home. And then when I came back to the U.S. after being in Russia for 20 years doing this work, I realized how bad it was here because I couldn't remember, and that is programmed into all of us who've been in the MK Ultra program. They block your memories. They can do it with drugs. They can do it with, they call it creating dissociative identity disorder. They're masters at that. And if you do start to remember, you are absolutely overwhelmingly driven to unalive yourself. So that's why you're seeing celebrities come forward, they make a big announcement, and then they've unalived themselves the next day, and you don't know why. And the reason is they hit these programs, which are overpoweringly negative and brutal, and start running in your head. And I've run into them every time I've made a major step forward in my own memories, but I've learned how to reduce the impact so it doesn't come at me all at once, and I pull it like a little thread and like reading it like a little ticker tape instead of this overwhelming monster coming at me. So, and now I'm in touch with many MK Ultra survivors throughout the United States, and we're having regular programs trying to get the word out there because we have to warn people. I think as you get older, it starts to wear off, and you have to know that you're going to hit this unaliving program. You're going to start hearing your father's voice. I always hear my father's voice telling me, well, I sold you for this. Well, you're a waste of space. Why should I buy you shoes? He was cruel, vicious, tried to kill me more than once. And I have a lot of unresolved issues with my family, as you can imagine. But
I say, Dr. Engel, before you go and continue, I got to sit there and say, you went to medical school, you went through so much trauma, and I want people listening, and I see this point where, like I said, I was listening to the Michael Jackson song, Keep the Faith. Mm-hmm. Boy, did you keep the faith. Boy, did you keep the faith. People, things may get tough, things can get hard, but she's an example of keeping the faith, keeping focus. What, of all the things you went through, why medical school? What made you strong enough to sit there and go, because medical school ain't an easy thing to do. What made you feel like you can do it? And what was your focus point to say, hey, I'm going to go to medical school? What was your focus? What was your reasoning for going that route and staying with it?
Well, my entire life in MK Ultra had been music. So it was the study of frequencies, time travel, interdimensional travel, all using the frequencies in music. And I was being brought up as an entertainer. I was a very talented musician. And when I realized that that, okay, they get you on the stage, you're the big deal, you're getting all the bling, but you're going to hell. I mean, hell in life. I escaped and wanted to do the exact opposite because I realized I could never touch music again. I couldn't let those frequencies start sending me interdimensionally. I'd lose my mind. So I took a college catalog because I'd run away to the University of Washington. And my parents had nothing to do with my life really from then on. And I opened the college catalog, and there was a guy in a white coat with black glasses, and I thought, I can do that. And I did. So I was blessed with a lot of abilities and talents. But as you say, keeping the faith is the most important thing you do in your life. It was always, and I understand why you put your hands together for prayer, because that's your link to the divine, and that's survival. And the human soul is what the enemy fears the most. It is so powerful, and that's why they'll throw all kinds of things at you, telling you to destroy yourself, because you can destroy yourself. They can't touch your soul. So I encourage people, pay attention now. Since I'm one of the first ones in the program, I'm one of the first coming out the other side. Thousands of people are going to start going through. Just chronologically, they're going to start recovering memories, and so we need to prepare them, because they are precious souls. I mean, they are amazing souls to have survived. Most people didn't. I can tell you there was cannibalism. They imported children from other countries and used them as sacrifices, snuff films, all the things you're reading about in the Epstein files. That all came from MK Ultra. So
I got you there. Yeah, you go ahead. If you want to get a drink, go ahead and get a drink.
Sorry.
Well, our special guest today, Dr. Engel, what a wonderful, passionate story. She's written 2 books about that. Make sure you go and get her books and read more about the stories. It reminds me of the series I used to watch when it was on America. The Russian, the Russian spies.
Yeah.
With that. That's all. But so it reminds me kind of that. And then, like I said, the Epstein files and stuff like that. And we're seeing why they're trying to keep it under wraps, because it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up eventually someday. And that's just amazing stuff like that, too. I want to ask you this. You go through this. Us as humans, we need somebody. After a while, we need to be somebody. Nobody deserves to be alone. All the stuff you've gone through in your life as you're growing over, how was your personal life? Did you get married? Did you not get married? Were you afraid of men and this and that? Were you afraid of people because of all you went through? How did you get to the point where you trust people over the years? How did that happen?
That's another good question. I had a very full life. As a physician, your life is, and I worked in a hospital running an ultrasound department, and yes, I did have a family, and I didn't travel overseas until my kids were in high school and beyond that. So, and they were launched on their lives. But yeah, trusting people, I don't know. It's hard for me because I was in this program starting so young. I don't know if I ever trusted anybody, and that was probably. That's probably what's kept me alive all this time. Plus a very keen sense of what other people are thinking, and that's one of the qualities they chose us for, was our ability to read other people's minds and emotion. And the sex magic is actually about projecting sexual energy. It's not really. It's manipulation. But it's interpreted by the recipient as sexual energy and makes them want to do what you're seducing them to do. But it's all mechanical, like much of the magic, the frequencies, the music. The people creating it have no feeling about it at all. It's acting. But the people receiving it are traumatized, confused. You know, it's a monstrous crime. It is criminal, and there's it's very, very good that we're focused on Epstein. In fact, the whole world is focused on Epstein. You know, calling corrupt leaders the Epstein class is accurate. And everyone has to realize he's one guy. There are dozens and dozens, and there are foundations that are corrupt that do nothing but run child trafficking rings, and they're based largely in the United States, which is something that I uncovered while I was working in Russia. And then I came back to the United States and I reported this to Congress and to the State Department and to the UN and made speeches. And no one cared. And now I realize it's not that no one cared, it's that they were all complicit. And we've got a very big problem. And it's not going to be anything the government solves. It's going to be the alternative media. I think you're the biggest weapon against everything that's going on that Satan's trying to promote on Earth.
You know, Dr. Engel, you mentioned, or you say child trafficking. I don't really see the child trafficking, how big it is, until like out in here in Arizona, maybe a big sporting event comes around, you know, the Super Bowl or basically, you know, stuff like that. These big events come into town, and all of a sudden they talk about, okay, we have a lot more police force because they're looking for child trafficking, this and that. But child trafficking, yes, it's huge, huh? It's huge. But it's huge in a sense where it's out there in broad daylight, and us regular Joes really don't realize it.
Yeah.
How do we realize it so we can start helping out to prevent that? Because you hear horror stories and you're heartbroken, but again, you don't see it as a little guy. How can we start seeing it?
This is how they are able to continue to do it. And also, when it comes out, like it was announced by the State Department, that over the past 2 years, 500,000 unaccompanied children were brought into the U.S. over the border. 500,000 people. They were put into vans contracted by the State Department and the FBI. They were shipped all over America, and now they claim they don't know what happened to them. Well, that is bullshit. That is absolute nonsense. But there's nowhere to go, nowhere to ask, and the agencies that were created to the publicly, oh yes, we're taking care of that. That doesn't happen here. All this, they're all in on it, and so we're at the bottom of a horrific conspiracy, and however, here I am. I've lived through this for 77 years, so and by keeping the faith and keeping my soul, living in my soul, and it's always, to me, it's this line to the divine. It's your connection to the Lord that they can hurt you physically, and they can threaten, and they can, and you're the other point you make is how do you fight it? We have to fight it as small groups in communities. Community groups have to form, and I'm hoping that when we can finally start talking about this in Congress, we can start getting, the corruption in Congress is becoming more and more obvious. It's just so disgusting. Yeah, I sort of suspected it, but wow, we've got to. And the other thing is that the money is about to crash. So when that happens, then the child sex trafficking isn't the big moneymaker anymore, and a lot of the institutions that are promoting it, and I could name a dozen you've heard of, including the United Nations, UNICEF, International Organization of Migration. They're going to fall because they won't be supported anymore, and then we have a chance, but we also have a chance for being preyed upon, because if men go to war, women and children are preyed upon instantly. I think a lot of the children I'm positive, a great deal number of the children being trafficked now are from Ukraine.
Dr. Engel, when you escaped initially, we're bringing you back, you escaped from that. What was the emotion like when you wanted to start your life? You know, okay, you escaped, you're hiding. You know, you could kind of say a little bit of where you went, how you survived, how'd you make money to pay for things like that. So tell us a little bit of that story, and then what was the emotion like at night? You go to bed and like you must have got so emotional, start tearing up, saying, "Man, I can't even go home and trust my father, my parents. What is this world all about? How did this happen to me? Why me?" Share some emotions that you occurred really for the first year after you escaped MK.
Well, the interesting thing is the first thing they do to a child at MK Ultra is start breaking up their mind, and that means, to me, it's like having 150 different boxes in my head, and I can put a horrible experience in one of those boxes and seal it up so tight I never see it again, and it affects me, but I have to really work to get at it. And as I was escaping, I escaped from a record executive party in Monterey, California. When I was 17 years old, I stole a car with my handler still in it. He passed out from selling drugs all over Monterey all day. And I drove barefoot, no driver's license, no shoes, no purse. Just I was getting out of there, and I was driving north because if I could get to Seattle, I'd gotten myself into the University of Washington. I had no money to pay for it. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. I did get there. I discovered that he had a roll. Then this is the Lord. He had a huge roll of $20 bills in his glove box because he'd been selling LSD all day, and I got that. And then his car was full of green stamps. I don't know if you're familiar with green stamps, but you know.
S&H green stamps. Yep,
Exactly.
green stamps.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I got everything I needed for college, and I showed up at the University of Washington on the first day looking like all the other co-eds and forgot everything. I had no recollection of what had happened the week before. I forgot music. I forgot my entire life. I couldn't tell you anything about myself. It was a complete block, which otherwise, how could I have gone forward? You know, I was on my own. I looked like all the other co-eds, and I was on my way. And that was not until many years later when I was 30 and I had a daughter and I had to start remembering, you know, okay, how do you be a mother? That anything came back to me. So that's how I survived. Blocked it completely. The tragedy is I lost all that music, years of training and writing and performing, and gone. And that was the sacrifice.
Outstanding. Okay, so you went to school, you got your degree, you opened your practice. Was there a time, a pivotal moment in your medical career that you helping vulnerable populations? You must have saw a lot of stuff. You had your practice for a lot of years. You must have saw a lot of stuff that probably upset you, made you emotional, and you said, "I'm going to help this person out." Can you share with us a few examples of when you saw something and it kind of brought you back and kind of started you and said, "Okay, I'm going to help"? Is there a moment there, a couple of moments that way?
Yes, it happened all the time. It made me a very good doctor, and then in 1990, when I was in my late 30s and my kids were heading towards college, I was invited to go to Russia. And this was when Russia was just opening up. This was perestroika, and I was one of the first doctors across the Iron Curtain. And so I was one of the first doctors into their birthing houses. And that was something else, because it was a third world torture chamber. It was worse than prison. And I've written, it's described in Sparky, and that was a huge wake-up call, because suddenly all the torture, my own torture and my own brutal experiences, and the death of children and the cruelty were just almost more than I could bear, except that instead of being a 6-year-old kid who couldn't do anything, I was a almost a 40-year-old doctor with all kinds of resources and quite a lot of, I wasn't poor anymore, and I was very strong, very determined. And that's where I dug in and started tracing what was happening in the baby houses, what was happening to the children, what was happening in the orphanages, and then discovering the trafficking going on from the orphanages. And then I followed the traffickers, I followed their routes, and eventually we created an organization in multiple countries, me, and with hundreds of very small little community groups who became tremendously active and very effective. And that's how we would track down trafficked people, bring them back, and then re-enter them into their villages. And it worked very, very well. We could do that here, but everything is blocked. Anybody who even tries to gather information in their own states about human trafficking gets told to unload it and threatened. That happened in Texas. And every time I've tried to I want to put up an interactive map so that people can start reporting, because in Russia we found out that it's not just solid facts, it's people notice things in their communities. They know when something's wrong. They may not have the facts, but they'll start reporting, and then you can call a grand jury and you can start investigating. So we have the tools. We're just lacking the organization, and we're still suffering the impact of the mind control that comes at us all the time through the media. I mean, it's much worse than when I was a child for the population. And so we've got to fight this, and it's a soul fight. It's a spiritual war. It's good versus evil, and we need to protect our children. We need to protect the lives of infants, and we have. Yes, we're going to.
Amazing. Yes. Okay. Normally I asked a little earlier, but tell us, where do we go after the show to buy your books? Give us the title of your books, and where do we go after the show to buy your books? Go ahead.
My books, you can look me up on the internet. Just look up my name, Juliet Engel, MD, and you'll find my books, Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic, which is about my childhood inside the MK Ultra program. And then my life in Russia, going to Russia and discovering human trafficking, and then spending 20 years building the Angel Coalition, and then the rescues and the relationships. If you want emotion, there's a lot of emotion in both those books. So that's Angels Over Moscow. And my third book is Moscow Traffic, which is a historic novel. It's going to tell you more about the way the international crime works with human trafficking and child trafficking than any nonfiction book. So that's three good reads, and you can find them on the internet. My publisher is Trine Day, TRINE Day, .com. But if you just look me up, you'll get to my publisher's website, and you can order the books. And they're also available on Amazon.
Outstanding. Thank you. Final comment, ma'am. How do you envision where the issues of child trafficking or exploitation and trafficking addresses? Okay, so kind of you're pushed strong. You want people to help you, stuff like that. As you sit and look into the future, what do you envision the child trafficking and exploitation of children in the future? What's your thoughts on that in closing?
I think we've got a real problem when the economy crashes, that the child trafficking is just going to go out of control, and it'll be individuals who have strong souls and a determination to stop the evil that will stop it. And this is a time for prayer, for strength, for helping one another, for building community. We'll have to do that to survive. And when the money is pulled out of the middle, and they're counting on artificial intelligence to make us complete slaves, that's not going to work. I'm at the front of the curve that's waking up and recognizing that it's garbage in, garbage out, meant to enslave us. Everybody else is coming, and we're going to have some very tough years, but we are strong souls. Americans are good people.
Outstanding. Dr. Juliet Engel, thank you so much for joining us, sharing with us powerful stuff. We're going to put you on all our platforms, put you out there, put you on the Roku, stuff like that, because this is the powerful story. Didn't realize how deep it was. You know, you kind of think, well, maybe it's not really happening, you know, as big as you thought. But it's happening big. So thank you very much for sharing. You keep the faith. You stay safe now. You make sure you stay safe. And thank you so much for joining us, okay?
Yes, thank you, Hollis.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. What a great show. Do you really believe how powerful that was? You know, a lady like that, she's doing her stuff. She's doing her part. So we got to do our part as well. You know, human trafficking. I didn't realize it's still so huge. You know, you look at certain things. I mean, the only time I hear about it, human trafficking, is when a big sporting event comes to town. You know, hey, you're going to look out for this. They won't do this. You know, sometimes you get some people come out of Mexico and they stop these big trailers and stuff like that. But it's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that. Let's do our part, okay? Let's do our part. Let's give Dr. Ingalls some cheers. You know, she deserves that same innovation. She deserves all the help she can get. She's passionate about what she does. She's went through. I mean, I'm just amazed that she survived all that. You know, I know young people who doesn't do half of what she's done and give up in life, commit suicide. She's went through it, worked through it, becoming a very successful MD, and now she's helping others. We should help her as well, okay? We're better in numbers. We all know that. We're better in numbers, okay? Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Hollis Chapman Show on this Tuesday. Make sure you follow up with Dr. Juliet Ingalls, okay? You can find us also on...
Authors and small business owners, turn your book and or your business into a streaming television brand. You wrote the book, you built the business. Now it's time to be seen on Roku and Amazon Fire Television. The Hollis Chapman Show helps authors and small business owners. Get featured on a professionally produced TV show. Appear on Roku and Amazon Fire Television streaming platforms. Build authority and credibility. Reach new audiences beyond social media. Receive in-house marketing support. This isn't just an interview. This is brand positioning. If you're serious about in 2026, let's put your brand on television. Appy now for a featured television plus podcast spotlight. Book your strategy email today.
Thank you very much. See you Friday on the Hollis Chapman Show. We have a show on Friday and Saturday this week. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a safe and enjoyable week. We'll see you Friday.